In this short but very important lesson, we are going to look again at the logical operators. You might remember that we talked about ANDs and ORs in the lecture about more complex where conditions, right? But I'm going to clarify a couple of things about them here. And besides that, I'm going to introduce you to the NOT operator. So, the AND and OR operators are used to connect two conditions to create a bigger one. You have seen several examples of them at this point, but I left something very important in pending state, which is the explanation about how they actually work and the results they produce depending on the values of the subconditions they connect. You probably don't need an explanation about them, because to know what the results are going to be, you just have to apply simple logic, the kind of logic you use in everyday life. Let me illustrate it with an example. Let's talk about your cell phone. You know that in order to be able to make a normal phone call, it needs to be turned on, and it has to have a SIM card or any kind of chip that makes it connect to a phone company. So being turned on and being connected to a phone company network are the two conditions needed to be able to make a call. These conditions are connected by an AND in this case. So if your phone is turned on, but it doesn't have a SIM card, can you make a call? You know the answer, right? You don't need to know some rule about it. Now, if the phone has a SIM card, but it is not turned on, can you make a call? No. And if the phone doesn't have a SIM card, and it is not turned on, can you make a call? Of course not. So, when can you make a call? The answer to can I make a call will be true or yes, only when both subconditions are true. And that is the only rule you need to know. But as I said a moment ago, that is not a rule. That's simple everyday logic. Now let's talk about OR. Let's use a laptop computer as an example. In order to be able to turn it on, it has to have some kind of power source, right? We can turn it on if it is connected to a power outlet or if it has enough charge in the battery to make it work. In this case, these conditions are connected with an OR. So, if it is connected to the power outlet, but the battery is not charged, can you turn it on? Yes. And if it is not connected to the power outlet, but the battery is charged, can you turn it on? Yes, you can. And if it is connected and also the battery is charged, can you turn it on? Yes, of course. So, when is it not possible to turn it on? Only when both conditions are false, that is, when it is not connected to the power outlet and the battery is not charged. So, to summarize, the result of two conditions connected with an AND is true only when both conditions are true. In every other situation, the result is false. And the result of two conditions connected with an OR is false only when both conditions are false. In every other situation, the result is true. Now, what about NOT? NOT is used to negate or invert or reverse the logical value of a condition. So if the condition evaluates to true, NOT converts it to false. And if it evaluates to false, NOT converts it to true. And it can also be used with like, in, and between. I'm going to show you with some examples. If I write a query like this one, it returns the only product whose price is greater than 10. So if I add a NOT to this condition, the result is the opposite. It gives me the product whose price is not greater than 10. And if I have this query, it gives me these products. And if I add a NOT here, it gives me the opposite result. And I could also put this NOT here before the condition. as I did in the previous example, and the result will be the same. And I can also write conditions like this, where product ID not in some list, and product ID not between some value and some other value. And I can also apply the not operator to a composite condition. Let me show you. If I write the following query, I get these two rows. But if I want to invert the whole condition, I can enclose it in parentheses and add the not operator here. And I will get all of the records that do not comply with this condition. Now let me change something here. I'm going to remove these parentheses. The results are now different. Do you know why? I'm going to conclude this lesson with an explanation about something that is called operator precedence. Precedence is the importance or priority that is given to operators when conditions are evaluated. Precedence comes into play when we don't specify the order in which conditions must be evaluated by using parentheses. In the query of the last example, we had two logical operators, which are this not and this and. If we don't specify that this and must be evaluated first by enclosing this condition in parentheses, then the order is decided based on the operator's precedence. And among logical operators, not is the one with the higher precedence or priority. So in this case, the not is applied first, and it is applied to the condition that is next to it. And after the not is applied, the and operator is applied to the two resulting conditions. But if we add these parentheses here, we are telling the database that we want this and to be evaluated first, and then we want to apply the not to the result. You might remember that in the lesson about complex where conditions, I mentioned that when two or more conditions were at the same level, they were evaluated in order, from left to right. And the same happens when we have several conditions without parentheses. But that is only true when the operators have the same precedence. In that lesson, I mentioned that ands and ors were evaluated in order when parentheses were not involved. But that is actually not true. I say that at the moment because I didn't want to confuse you or complicate things more than necessary. But the truth is that and or don't have the same precedence, and thus they are not evaluated in order. Among these two, and is the one with more precedence. So if you have several ands and ors and no parentheses, ands are evaluated first. So to summarize, this is the precedence of the logical operators. The one with the highest precedence is the not operator. After not, the next one with higher precedence is and. And finally, or. Got it? Okay, here is your task for this lecture. When the description appears, pause the video to work on it and continue when you are done. Welcome back. Do you have something to discuss, share, or ask about this task or about the lesson in general? Cool. Go ahead and add your comments to the question and answer section. When you have ands and ors in the word clause of a query, it is almost sure that you are going to need parentheses to make them evaluate in the order you need. The order in which conditions are evaluated is not something trivial, and it can completely change the result of your query. So please don't take it lightly. Even if you know it will be evaluated correctly without parentheses, it might be a good idea to add them anyway, just to make sure others understand the desired evaluation process. It might be obvious to you, because you know about the precedence of operators, but you can't be sure others know it as well. Okay, see you in the next lecture.